Job creation in March slowing way down, but the list of companies hiking wages is going up. McDonald's the latest, lifting pay for 90,000 workers. But that's not enough for these union-backed protesters. They want $15 an hour. B, what's that gonna do to jobs?
Well, it's going to kill jobs, Brenda. Look, we just went through this in Seattle, where effective April 1st, they had to raise their wages to $15 an hour. Already you've had numerous restaurants closing. Just a few of them, you had Grub in the Queen Anne neighborhood, you had Little Uncle, you had the Boat Street Cafe. That's just the tip of the iceberg because I said the wages the raise just went into effect. Brenda, it comes down to simple mathematics. 33% of a restaurant's expenses are on wages. They only have about a 1.5% to 3% profit margin. Do the math. If you raise wages 50% for your from $10 to $15, guess what happens to your profit margin? It goes to zero. Profit margin goes to zero, Brenda. There's no reason to be in business.
Right, and it's the first wave in Seattle right now. It hasn't quite gone up to 15. Chuck, what do you think about this? Why are the unions upset that we're raising wages?
Well, let's stay on the math, and let's do the backwoods country math, and I'll take the unemployment rate of 10% 5 years ago, and now the unemployment rate is 5%. The profits are skyrocketing for these big corporations and for these big restaurants. I would throw Walmart in there as well, but there's been a lot of social pressure, so they started to raise the wages. And let's not fool ourselves with McDonald's. These are for the McDonald's-owned stores. It's only 1 in 10 of these employees are actually going to get a raise. I think it's good when workers get compensated for the work that they deliver. I would remind people when we were a colony, we had a collective action against England to say that we're not going to take this anymore. And if you pump more money into the back pockets of these workers, they're going to do what with it, guys? They're going to spend that money, and it's going to help all the economy, and it's going to help all of us. I don't know why we'd be against people making more money.
Well, that's not necessarily it. John, you have businesses deciding whether to raise wages or the government telling businesses whether to raise their wages. Which one is better, and what do they do to jobs?
I think the business knows their own business. A lot of these are franchisees that, when they talk about not McDonald's-owned stores, that's what they're so upset about. These are mom-and-pop type stores who simply can't afford to pay this. And if you're talking about a $15 minimum wage in Seattle, that does not play very well down in Biloxi, Mississippi. It's hard to have a federal minimum wage. I agree with indexing a federal minimum wage to a basket of wages and also to inflation. But this fallacy that if you just look back to 1968, the minimum wage would be at $10 now. That was a high inflation year. They cherry-picked their numbers. If you go to 1988 or 1948, that number is significantly below where it is right now. These companies need to be able to know their own business well enough to be able to pay the wages. And look, if it makes so much sense to pay them $10 and it helps the economy, pay them $1,000 an hour if it really helps the economy that much.
Okay, Jonas, Walmart, Target, McDonald's, all raising wages. It looks like we don't need a minimum wage. The companies are responding to supply and demand.
And consumer behavior. I just said there was at one point, the unemployment rate's gone down a lot because wages haven't gone up a lot in America. That is probably the main reason the unemployment rate's gone down. If wages were artificially higher than the market would clear, like in Europe, we'd have a higher unemployment rate. That said, I think we're going in a good direction right now because companies are feeling the pressure that maybe they need to pay more than the market clearing rate. Maybe consumers don't want a $1 hamburger anymore if they think it's being made in a borderline sweatshop environment. So that's the natural way for it to occur, not with a federal decree that it should be 15 or 18 or 14. Who's to know what that rate would be, and would it be appropriate in all markets? We've had some local markets go up with higher rates. It's okay in those markets. They can handle it in Seattle or wherever. But I think for the most workers, it'd be better if companies felt the pressure to not pay with the least possible they can to get people to show up for the job. And it's going to have to come from consumers who are going to have to pay a little more for their products.
Hadley?
Let's keep in mind that the real minimum wage is always $0. That's what you make when you lose your job. That's what people make when businesses go out of business and are no longer able to create jobs, to offer people the opportunity to get into the workforce, to build lives for themselves. And businesses who have been raising wages are not doing so because of social pressure. They're doing so for business reasons. Walmart did it to lower their quit and replace rate. They had problems retaining workers. They want to attract and retain the best workers. That's why they're raising wages.
Okay, I want to let Chuck get in on this now.
Guys, we can't have a race to the bottom. I agree. I run a small business myself. I know that we should set the wages. I'm saying in these big corporations where you're giving 1 out of 10 workers a raise, sometimes if you don't make things happen, they're not going to automatically give it. Now, I give Target, I give Walmart credit because what Hadley said is right. They're creating and coming off of a demand, but we are better than this. We don't need to have a race to the bottom.
Okay, quickly, Gary V., last word.
Well, Chuck makes the correlation between the unemployment rate and the minimum wage. Unfortunately, it's incorrect. If you look at who is most affected by minimum wage, it's teenagers, particularly black teenagers. What happens when the minimum wage was raised? Unemployment amongst that group skyrocketed.
Okay, that's got to